Iori is an ugly loser whose parents send him to help with his uncle's dive store. However, when he discovers that the workers are hot baddies, he joins the diving club to see some underwater plots. The day he was sent off, Iori's uncle drops him off at the Grand Blue Shack where he'd be staying while attending college, and as he looks around, his culture radar detects a hot chick. Before he can memorize her cup size, he is called into the shack only to find a ditty party going on, causing him to quietly exit the room. When he enters the shop, he meets his uncle there, who asks why he looks upset, and he tries pointing out the absurd things going on, but his uncle doesn't see what's wrong, even when a dude whips out his pet dragon. After realizing that he's with people that are crazier than the Joker, he runs out faster than Zenitsu using his 7th form, and when the dudes ask why he bailed, his uncle tells them he may have been homesick. After they capture him, they return to the shack, stating that they understand he is homesick, but he tries to clear up their misunderstanding, stating that he ran away because they were having a sausage fest party. After this, Iori decides to tag along for the cleaning duty, and the Kotobuki introduces himself to him, saying he's happy that Iori is joining their club, even though Iori never agreed to anything like that. When they arrive at the seashore, they meet a hot chick there and she rushes to meet him. As they talk, she lets him know that she is his cousin, and while they do some chores together, she chats about everything they've been up to since they last met, telling him that he'd be surprised at how much Bunda, her younger sister, has attained. Soon after, they stumble on the Brady Bunch as they're getting wasted, and Nanaka gives him up to the boys, saying they should take care of him. They then sit him down, telling him to try out drinking and naked games, but he refuses to do so, even when they try their best to convince him. Soon after, Chisa walks towards the house, and she is disappointed to see him behaving like the other Dunbasses, causing her to angrily storm off. As Nanaka decides to leave, Iori tries to sneak away with her, but the boys hold him back, inviting him to drink with them throughout the night, and he tries explaining that he has an early orientation class the next day. However, they tell him not to worry about it, promising that they will get to school on time for it, and he decides to fold. The next morning, he suddenly wakes up in his drawers to see that he has overslept and suddenly notices a crowd of people around him. Immediately, he realizes he is in school, making him freak out since he's half naked. And to make matters worse, regardless of how he's dressed, he decides to attend the orientation, and after this, he notices a hot dude wearing a waifu shirt sitting next to him. They both make up their minds to stay away from each other as they think they are weird, and Iori decides to meet with Chisa, but she tries to ignore him since he looks like a creep. Even with this, he keeps following her, explaining that he doesn't know his way home, but she tells him to piss off as she doesn't want to be associated with him. He then asks for her clothes so he can be properly dressed, and she immediately calls security for him, saying he's a cultured creep who wanted her clothes. To get her to cooperate, he threatens to let the school know that they live together, and she starts playing the victim, twisting the story to make it seem like he was taking advantage of her, which makes the security guy go after Iori. However, he manages to escape, and while he hides, Kohei bumps into him, offering to help him out, but when he doesn't narrate the story well, Kohei almost rats him out, making Iori freak out. Just then, he says he'll explain what's going on if Kohei takes off his clothes, which makes the situation worse, and soon after, he meets Kotobuki, asking for some clothes. He then strikes a deal with him, asking him to get a member for the club in exchange for some clothes, and Iori gladly accepts. Just then, he meets Kohei, who is crying over the fact that he hasn't found a club with girls that would form his harem, and Iori takes advantage of his vulnerable state, tricking him into joining the club. Afterward, they hold a welcome party and Iori sneaks away to talk with Chisa, but soon after, the boys snatch him away to participate in a drinking contest with Kohei. The two try to outdo each other and end up getting a hangover. While struggling to find water, Kotobuki tricks them into drinking more shots, which makes them crash out. The next day, while the group has lunch together, Nanaka complains that Iori has stayed out of the house for 2 days in a row, but the boys are too busy discussing a party they had planned and try to convince Iori to tag along. As he tries refusing their invitation, the dude grabs him as if he owes him money, which makes him pee his pants, and to save him, Nanaka says that he can't go out since he hasn't even set up his stuff in the house, which created a chance for him to turn them down. Hearing this, the boys decide to let go, and Iori taunts them as they walk away. Just then, they mention that they are going to have the party with chicks from a girls' college nearby, and Iori could be called a Nintendo Switch as he immediately switches teams, begging Nanaka to let him go out with the boys. When she continuously refuses to let him go out, he thinks of ways to convince her with the boys, and they finally decide that he should set up his room to convince her, offering to help him out, which he agrees to. With a lot of confidence, Iori decides to take Nanaka to his room to show her he has settled in, only to see his room plastered with private browser materials, and this makes her soul leave her body. Just then, the boys show up, feeling proud of their work, and Iori becomes angrier than the Hulk, scolding them for turning his room into a kingdom of late-night self-care. When he tells them to get the hell out, they decide to pacify him with some black and orange hub movie, and while watching it, Chisa walks in on him rating the film, making her turn his head to a Jack-in-the-Box. This makes Iori fed up with the boys, but they bribe him with another movie of culture and he gives them another chance. Later on, he spots Kohei come from upstairs, and this immediately makes his spidey senses tingle. So he rushes up to his room, only to find that he has converted it to an Isekai shrine of waifus, and this makes him crash out, telling them to fix the room up. Later on, he walks in to see his room looking like Diddy had designed the room, and he immediately goes into the avatar state of anger, ripping Kohei from limb to limb, while the boys decide to check out the collection of movies Kohei got. Just then, Nanaka shows up to the room, and Iori quickly prevents her from seeing the room, but unfortunately, she overhears the boys watching a James Brown type of movie, making her awkwardly walk away. This makes him pissed since they're ruining his chances of attending the party, and since he's determined to go, he comes up with the plan to convert his room into a shrine of Chisa, since Nanaka is into her. While doing this, the boys warn that it's a bad idea since his room looks like the Fortress of Solitude for stalkers, but Iori ignores them, and just then, Kotoki reveals that the party has been postponed, which reduces Iori's mental health status to 1 HP, since all his efforts were a waste. To make matters worse, Chisa suddenly walks in, seeing more pictures of her face than there are stars in the universe.
Embarrassing!
So they end up kicking out of the house to a detached room, and this makes him very upset. The next morning at the main house, the boys reveal that they want to have a training session with their recruits. However, Chisa isn't new to diving, so she asks to skip the training session, but her uncle tells her to stick around. Just then, Iori asks if he can just watch, explaining that a stone can swim better than him, but they explain that it doesn't really matter, claiming that some professional divers can't also swim, which convinces Iori to give it a shot. Following this, they take them to the swimming pool, and to start the training off, the dudes instruct them to dive in without shutting their eyes underwater, handing them swimming goggles to help them get used to it. When Iori does this, he is traumatized as Kotobuki whips out his underwater serpent, making Iori vow to stay away from diving. To make things easier, Kotobuki suggests they use the pool as a bath, and while doing this, Chika joins them. Seeing Iori without pants, this creeps her out, and Iori desperately tries to explain why he's in that situation, but she treats him like he's talking from the Phantom Realm, saying she would just watch from a corner. This breaks his heart, and while she walks away, she overhears him saying that diving sucks, adding that he gives up on learning to dive. Later on, while Iori is sulking in the house, Nanaka checks up on him, and the two later head to the aquarium. While they take a stroll around, Nanaka advises him on how he can enjoy the underwater scenery better, and when they enter the main auditorium, he is stunned at how beautiful the view is. Just then, she reveals that Chisa brought up the idea of taking him there, and explains that she really wants him to like diving, making him figure that Chisa must really like diving. Seeing how much it means to her, it sparks his interest in diving, and when they get back to the house, he hands the souvenir he got for her, telling her he still doesn't like diving but is willing to give it a try, which makes her glad. The next morning, Iori wakes up to meet Tokito and Kotobuki waiting for him in the living room with a girl's uniform, and this scares the crap out of him. Seeing this, he admits he is surprised that they were freaky like that, and the boys explain that the dresses were for club activities. Just then, Chisa barges into the room to see Kohei and Iori staring intensely at the female uniform, which creeps her out, and Iori quickly states that it's for club activities, making her suddenly chill with it, which surprises them. Just then, the dudes make them understand that the gear for diving costs more than the United States military budget, and they intend to get both of them to participate in an upcoming men's beauty pageant so they can get their gear with the prize money, but the two immediately refuse to do so. After they pressure both of them into agreeing to participate, Kotobuki takes the group to the ocean for some club activities, and splits the groll to pair so they can simulate what it's like under the ocean. While at it, Iori realizes that it's quite difficult to breathe with the gas masks, and Kotobuki says it's normal, claiming he'll get used to it eventually. After a brief pep talk with him to assure him that he'll not drown because of the safety measures put in place, Iori finally feels confident about going into the ocean, and sees that it's a very beautiful scene. Just then, he rushes back to the house and happily tells Chisa how fun diving is, which makes her happy. Following this, the guys take them for lunch, and while he thanks them for encouraging him to dive, they pull out the girl's uniform, reminding him that he has to participate in the men's pageant, which drains his soul of joy. The next morning, as Iori wakes up, someone pushes him back to bed, and as he is about to crash out, he sees a chick, who could model for Victoria's Secret, lying beside him in her undies. While he thinks he's in the Matrix, wondering who she is, Kotobuki introduces her to him, telling him she's a member of their club who attends a woman's uni close by. He goes on to explain that she's part of the bros, and Iori freaks out when he finds that she is comfortable with sleeping in a room filled with oiled-up gigachads. After this, they inform him that they have something to do outside, and they invite Arata to tag along, but before he can wake her up, they tell him they want to talk with him first. After this, they all head to the seaside where Asura prepares a snack for them, and they reveal that the freshmen will help sell those snacks at a festival to raise some funds for the club. Just then, Tokita heads to prep the diving equipment with Kotobuki, and while Asura prepares to teach them to make the dish, they set their plan to get Chisa to participate in the women's pageant instead of them. Knowing that she wouldn't agree to do this in her right senses, they decide to get her drunk, but after many failed attempts, Asura figures out their plan, so they decide to come clean to her, asking her to participate in it. However, she turns their request down without batting an eye. After a while of desperate begging, Arata tells them to give their reason for the request instead, and they tell her they asked so they don't have to participate in the men's pageant, which makes her more sure of her reply. Later on at the house, while the boys get drunk and play their usual naked rock paper scissors, Asura tries convincing Chisa to take part in the beauty pageant, and although she initially refuses, she lets Chisa know that the boys never doubted that she would win since they think that she's the cutest girl in school, which makes her shy. The following day, Kotori announces that Chisa has agreed to take part in the pageant, and Iori alongside Kohei is overjoyed. However, their joy is cut short when they are handed the costume, and Kotori explains that they have to participate in the pageant since it's the condition Chisa gave. On the day of the festival, the first years take the first shift at the snack shop, and the Kotobuki decides to check in on them. While he hands them some drinks to cool off, Kohei points out that a snack shop nearby seems to be taking up all the customers, and Kotobuki tells them that it's owned by a group of popular dudes from the tennis club, which triggers Kohei. Just then, Asura shows up with her milkshake, bringing all the boys to the yard, which makes them freak out, and Chisa quickly grabs her jacket to cover her up. However, it seems too small to contain her massive cannons, so she decides to find a shirt to wear and tells Iroh to come with her. While walking back to the store, she starts ranting about her being a double-edged sword since she thinks Iroh is freaky like her, and tells him that Tokito is her spec for guys and Nanaka for girls, which makes him nervous. When she asks about his type, he decides to come clean about being straight, but she says how freeing it is to talk to someone like her, since the others don't really get her, and this makes Iori continue with the lie. When they get back to the shop, Kohei asks Iori about Asarada's sudden obsession with pushing the two of them together, and Iori apologizes for dragging him into his lies even though he isn't aware of it, and Kohei. After this, some douchebags from the competing shops start hitting on Chisa and Asura, and this annoys both of them. Just then, Iori shows up with Kohei, behaving like they were possessed by Hisoka, and this makes the dudes freak out, causing them to awkwardly walk away. After this, the girls decide to switch shifts and Iori begs to be on the same shift with Chisa since he does not want to deal with Asura. When she asks why he wanted to be with her on the shift, he replies that he just doesn't want to be alone with Asura, and she interprets this as him having a crush on her, which confuses him. They then carry on with their job, working like they share one brain while talking about the time of their pageants. And after a while, Nanaka shows up with Asura, dragging Chisa away to prepare for her pageant. Just then, Kohei joins him, and the two soon get into a fight over who is more fit to enter the joke category of the contest. Suddenly, Kotobuki tells them that they're closing the shop since Chisa's pageant show is beginning and they head to watch it. After a while, Chisa walks up on stage, and the group notices that she looks too harsh, which may affect her chances of winning. To improve her chances, Kohei suggests they make her smile, so they go ahead to make faces that even a mother can't love, but this makes her angrier instead. Seeing it failed, Kohei suggests they trigger her bashful side, so they call out to her while holding a banner to support her, but she shows zero reactions to it. As a last resort, Kohei suggests they use bouncy balls to lift her skirt, which would make her shy, but Iori feels it'll make her pissed, so they all agree to hold some balls and toss them from different angles so she can't figure out the culprit. After a while of throwing the balls, Iori realizes that he's the only person throwing the balls, and Chisa soon spots him, causing her to hunt him after the show. While he is hiding with Kohei, the female version of Pennywise meets them there and suddenly asks Kohei to be her boyfriend, which surprises them. As Iori tries sneaking away, Kohei holds him back and the two get into a fight, causing Aina to run off since he doesn't seem interested in her. After this, Kotori shows up with Kotobuki, and they head to meet the others in one of the break rooms. Just then, Chisa shows up and unexpectedly says she forgives him since she owes him, but the idiot slips up, revealing that he saw her gates to paradise, which triggers her, so she whips out a gallon of booze and Iori chugs the entire thing as his punishment. Before she can force a second keg down his throat, Asura shows up and he quickly uses her as a human shield. When they ask where she has been, she says that one of the douchebags continued hitting on her, so she sent him to sign up for the pageant so she can escape, and while the group has drinks together, Iori heads to a vending machine with Kohei, where they meet Aina in tears. She then complains about people rejecting her no matter how hard she tries to fit in, and how the guys at the tennis club make a fool out of her, narrating how they mistreated her after the show. Seeing how sad she looks, the two decide to get revenge on her behalf. Later on, after Kudo's turn on stage, Kohei walks out and suddenly asks Asuza to go out with him, which gets on Kudo's nerves, so he decides to do the same. After she chooses him, he starts to taunt Kohei, but to his surprise, Iori takes off his disguise and they mock Kudo for confessing his feelings to a dude in front of the crowd, making a fool of him. While they all find it funny, Chisa gets annoyed and walks off. In the end, Chisa wins the pageant with Iori, and while they celebrate this, Iori joins them. Although she feels shy, Iori and Kohei give her a warm welcome, offering her a drink while teasing her about her makeup. The following day at the shop, a bunch of dudes crowd Chisa, asking her to hang out with them, and as she tries turning them down, one of the creeps grabs her, but Iori and Kohei are too hungover to help her, which annoys her. After the others show up to help her, they tell them it's time for the award ceremony, and even at the ceremony, Iori looks like he has a stroke, making Chisa angry. When Kotori asks why she seems upset, Asuza explains that she feels hurt that Iori worked so hard to cheer up a random bimbo, and they didn't help her when she was bothered by dudes even though she entered the contest for them. As his punishment, she announces that Iori is her boyfriend, and this makes the dudes in the crowd pissed at him. The following day at school, while Iori is chilling with Kohei, he notices that every dude in the class is staring daggers in their direction, and they try figuring out why this is happening, since there's nothing really different about them. After many theories, Kohei suggests finding out from Chisa, but Iori turns down the idea, thinking that she is going to lash out at them since she is in a bad mood from what happened at the festival. And to their surprise, they see that she is waxing at them with a broad smile, which makes them freak out. Iori then asks her what's happening, and she answers him in a cutesy way, triggering the mob. And although she denies not knowing anything about what's going on, he suddenly gets a note threatening to send him to meet Rengoku if he doesn't break up with Chisa, causing him confusion. When Kobe asks if they are dating, Iori attempts to deny it, but Chisa interrupts him, confirming the rumor and sarcastically thanks him for risking his life to prove his love for her, making him panic. Just then, Kobe immediately tries to bail, since this does not involve him, but Iori stops him, and when he resists, Iori yells that he is going out with Asuza, putting a target on him too. This causes a fight between the two, and after a while, he turns to plead with Chisa only to find that she has already gone. Later during lunch, the two seem to be chill even though they had gotten enough death threats that'll make even John Wick scared. And while they talk, a dude from their department shows up to ask if they could teach him the hypnosis technique they used on Chisa and Asuza to get them to go out with the two, which makes Iori pissed off, and after finding out that they know nothing, the two overhear the gang planning to use them as manure. As they start approaching them, the two begin to panic, and Iori desperately tries to explain that they had the wrong idea about his relationship with Chisa, but Kohei keeps countering every point he makes, making the mob more violent. As they are about to work on the both of them, Iori says they'll be at a loss to stop them, and says they will plan a mixer for them, causing the mob to immediately be chill with them. Later at the house, the two beg Asira to introduce her friends to them, but she tells them to ask Chisa instead, and she responds in a bad way to him. So he resumes his begging, and she agrees to introduce her friends to them on the condition that Iori continue to act like Chisa's boyfriend until she accepts it, which he agrees to since his life is at stake. Later on, Asuza introduces a cute girl to them, making them act like apes in heat, and after a while of excitement they soon realize it's Aina without her makeup, which makes them pissed, feeling like Asuza pulled a fast one on them. She then introduces herself as a new member of their club while the two become scared and doubts if she'll be able to set up the mixer. On the day of the mixer, the two get very nervous while they wait for Aina to show up with her friends, and just then two dudes show up for the mixer. While they head to the bar, they ask the two about the girls that are going to show up, and they try to give them honest answers without making them lose interest. Just then, Iori becomes worried since she was reluctant to set up the mixer as she just became a member of their club, and the dudes agree with her hesitation to do so, since they wouldn't like it to introduce their friends to a bunch of freaky creeps. Just then, they start to use Iori as a doormat, since they're jealous he has a girlfriend, and he can't deny it because of the deal he made with Asuza. Soon after, they arrive at the location of the mixer, and Four Eyes suggest that they have a signal between themselves, suggesting that they point their chopsticks at the girls they like to avoid fighting over girls. However, the desperate fatty says that he doesn't care who he ends up with, as long as they are willing to end his high score of virginity, and they head into the bar feeling pumped up. However, they are all disappointed to see the clapped chicks waiting for them, and are shocked when the desperate fatty still shows interest in them. Seeing how serious he is shocks the group, and Yamamoto forges ahead to get to know the girls, making the boys shed tears of pity for him. After the girls introduce themselves, the boys decide to make things interesting since Yamamoto is giving it his all, so they introduce themselves and pick a girl to sit across from. Seeing their determination to help, Yamamoto becomes relieved and the boys get to work, asking stuff to make things exciting. However, the answers Aina gives get on Iori and Kohei's nerves, causing them to crash out, but Four Eyes make them pipe down. After they cool off, they go on with their plan to get the girls to be friendly to Yamamoto, but Aina interrupts their plan, so Iori takes one for the team as he handles her. After this, the boys soon come across a photo of one of the chicks without her makeup, and realize that she is really hot, which surprises them. Immediately, Four Eyes and Iori become interested in her and start fighting over her. Just then, Yamamoto becomes interested in her too, and they all try tall with her, making her nervous. Meanwhile, Kohei is uninterested in her, since he's not into 3D girls, but he becomes interested when he sees a poster of his favorite anime waifu in the photo. While the boys struggle to get her attention, he walks up to her and asks her to come over to his place, which triggers everyone, causing the girls to head to the bathroom. As they leave, Yamamoto gets pissed, since he thought they were helping him out, and they get into an argument. However, Iori gets the situation under control, telling them that this mixer is a gateway to future mixers, so they should work together. When the girls return, Iori seems to hit it off with the hottie, and the other guys become mad at him, so Kohei decides to take revenge on behalf of the group, asking Iori about his alleged girlfriend, and this causes him to panic as he expects the girls to freak out. However, they seem to be chill about it, ignoring everything they're saying about him, and they reveal that Aina had already told them he has a girlfriend, which causes Iori to log out of life. After this, the girls head back home and the boys feel devastated as they didn't get any action. A few days later at school, Iori goes down on his knees to beg Chisa to stay by his side, and breaks down crying when she refuses to. It turns out he was just begging to cheat from her in their upcoming German test, and when he reports back to the group, they decide to make tiny copies of their notes so they cheat. After doing this, they all come up with their unique hiding places and feel pumped up, making up their minds to pass the test at all costs. Before the test begins, two of the group members' cheating materials are rendered useless, since the teacher prohibited what they used to smuggle them in, and Iori notices that Kohei is struggling to read his note as it gets smudged in sweat. Even with all their plans crumbling like a Zenitsu's confidence against a demon, Iori notices that a majority of the class is still composed, thinking they have so much confidence in themselves. Just then, some of his classmates stand up and leave the hall, while one of them gets caught cheating. After failing the students, the teacher notices that all of them are doing horribly and says he wants to give them freebie questions, which makes them relieved, but he goes on to dictate questions from hell. When the result comes out, a majority of the class ends up with low marks, so the teacher decides that whoever gets above 20 marks will be considered to have passed the course, and this makes everyone happy. However, Iori discovers a comment at the back of his test script instructing him to retake the test, which crushes his soul, and Chisa thinks they're acting stupid. Later at the house, Iori complains about how badly the mixer went, and the girls show up scolding them for not appreciating their efforts to even show up. Iori then asks Aina why she decided to join the club, so she starts blabbing about wanting to try new things and explore the beauty of the ocean. but the boys suddenly tell her she joined the wrong club, which confuses her since it's clearly a diving club. Just then, Kotobuki calls her to introduce herself to the rest of the club members, and with each sentence she makes, a piece of everyone's clothing becomes Houdini. Soon enough, they all go into natural mode, and this makes Ina freak out. When she points out how abnormal the situation is, Iori assumes that she already knew they weren't normal from her time with them at the festival, but she thought it was a one-time thing. Thinking that Chisa is the normal person there, she is shocked to see her channeling Iori's masochist spirit, and she is freaked out when Nanaka starts sucking on a cup that Chisa has drunk from. After Ina realizes that no one is normal there, the girls pull her out of all the chaos and discuss the gear she'll need to start diving, but the cost of the gear is a lot, so Asuza advises that she'll rent the gear for the meantime. When Chisa says that she'll need to get a swimsuit, she becomes shy, claiming that showing up in a swimsuit is embarrassing for normal people, and it suddenly hits her that the club members are immune to shame since they are partying in their first birthday suit at that moment, which makes her crash out. Later on, they realize that they've run out of booze, so Chisa volunteers to get some from a nearby store with Ina, and before they head out, Ina warns that they should keep their clothes on while they're out. As they step out, Iori soon gets into a fight with Kohei over their favorite snacks, and Kotobuki suggests they settle the quarrel with a game. Asuza then picks the Pachi game for the two to play, and after the two put on a rainbow show of affection for them, Iori suggests they play a game of rock, paper, scissors to pick the pair that'll play the next round. Soon after, the girls walk in to meet them without clothes, and she gets frustrated by this, while they try explaining their whack logic of strip, rock, paper, scissors, making her crash out. Following this, Kotobuki informs the new members about their license exams coming up, and this breaks Iori's and Kohei's hearts. When Katori asks if they went through the divining manual, they lie that they did, so they decide to carry out a little test to check if they're telling the truth. They begin by performing some hand signs for Iori, which he gets wrong and Kohei follows suit. So Kotobuki hands them the manual, instructing them to memorize it, and while doing this, Nanaka meets Iori, then tests how soft her chest airbags are against his back to catch him off guard, then asks if it's true that he is going out with Chisa with a chilling voice. This scares the crap out of Iori, and he uses the hand signs to signal for help, but the group assumes he's just practicing. Following this, he runs to Asuza for help, and she suggests that they resolve the issue by telling Nanaka that he likes Kohei, but he immediately stops her from doing so, and yells that he likes Chisa, causing Nanaka to emit more anger aura than Sung Jin Woo. She then grabs him like a troubled ghost, and to his surprise, she says she's glad they are on good terms since they have been quarreling ever since he arrived there. When Asuza asks what she'll do if they were really going out, Nanaka looks at Iori with intense bloodlust, and her haki paralyzes him with fear. The following day, Nanaka organizes the training session to pair Iori with Chisa, and while they head to the ocean, she tells him she paired them so they can strengthen their bond, assuring him that it won't have an opposite effect. As they prepare to dive in the ocean, Iori gets nervous, expecting her to treat him badly, but he is surprised to see how chill she is, and as they get in the water, he realizes that she isn't mad at him. He soon figures that she just wanted to enjoy the view with him since he was scared of swimming, and afterward, she is glad he had a good time. However, the dummy ruins the moment by saying that he knew she was Nanaka's sister when he saw her spectacular pancakes from behind, causing her to lash out at him. On this day, after they complete their German makeup exams, the boys decide to have a drink together to let off some steam, and they all unanimously agree to do so at Iori's place. When he asks why they settled for his place, they reveal that they want to check if Chisa is staying with him, staring at him with murderous intent, and this scares the crap out of him, while Kohei gives him a pennywise smile as he notices that he needs his help. Later on, when they arrive at the house, Iori quickly tells Nanaka to hide before the guys come in, and this confuses her since she thinks they are his friends. After they come in, he immediately suggests they head to his room to prevent them from running into any of the girls, and when they arrive at his room, they are shocked to see a huge chest cello hanger on his floor, which causes them to go after him since they assume it belongs to Chisa. However, Yamamoto stops them from whooping his butt, saying that it looks like a weird hat. And even when they see lipstick, he still holds them off from jumping Iori, assuming that it's a suppository. This calms the group down and they soon conclude that the bra can't possibly belong to Chisa since it's too big, adding to the fact that Iori is a loser who can't get a girl. Just then, they notice Ina's wig and a girl's uniform, making them think scared of Iori since they think that he also lives a life as a drag queen. Scared to talk about it, they decide to ignore it all and drink, while Iori stands at the door confused about what happened. While they settle down to drink, Yamamoto walks in and shows them an unclear photo of Chisa, saying he just saw an angel. However, the group tells him to forget about her since she's way out of his league, but he proclaims his love for her, claiming that their doubt doesn't stop him from trying to go after her, and then proceeds to head out in search of her, which makes Iori worried while the boys expect him to be rejected on the spot. After a while, he comes back crying in his drawers and the boys ask what happened to him. In response, he says he met a group of naked muscular men, and Yorari, alongside Kohei, immediately figures out that he ran into the club members while the others console him, since he has gone through mental torture. While the boys conclude that Chisa isn't possibly living with Yorari, saying that he's more clapped than a one-piece villain who would die a virgin, Chisa suddenly opens the door, announcing that the bath is free and she is shocked to see his friends, so she apologizes to them, then quickly runs off. Seeing he's cooked, he attempts to run away, but the boys hold him back and give him a facial remodeling. So he meets with Chisa, showing her what she has indirectly caused, and she feels slightly bad for him. Later on, while the new members talk about how they would love to go diving, Kotobuki and Tokito meet with them and commend them for having such passion for the sport, then announce that they'll be taking part in a doubles tennis match, which triggers Kohei and Iori. However, they explain that it's training for the buddy system of teamwork, and that the prize money would go a long way to help the club. They also tell them that the Kudo had set up the match and the two protest against it, claiming that he just wants to have his revenge on them, but the guys do not care about their dignity, insisting that they'll participate. The following day, the club heads to the tennis court for the match, and Iori spots the other club members drinking booze and cheering, without knowledge of what's going on. Just then, they meet the girls, and Iori asks Aina why she didn't wear a tennis skirt like the others. So she explains that she doesn't feel confident about her body like Chisa and Asuza, explaining that she even covered her legs with garter socks during the pageant, and Iori supports her, stating that her tracksuit fits her nicely. After a bit of banter between the two teams, they start the match and right off the bat send a serve that's stronger than a Rasengan, taking the other team by surprise, but they don't get discouraged. Seeing this, the group is confident that they'll win since Tokito seems to be very good at sports, and just then Iori notices that their supporters have gone missing. So he heads out with Kohei to look for them, only to find them almost in a coma, and one of them tells them that Aina had given them drinks from the Tinkerbell group, as he notices that they were drinking vodka that could fuel a jet. When they rush back to report to the others, they soon realize that Tokito and Kotobuki had taken from the vodka as they passed out and forfeit that set. Seeing this, Iori comes up with the idea of serving the other team a taste of their own medicine and getting their players drunk too, winning them the set. Just then, the girls begin their match, and the opposing team gets on Chisa's nerves, causing her to play like Serena Williams. Seeing how well she's supporting Aina, they yell that she is displaying a nice body to cheer her, but everyone thinks it means she has a nice body, drawing attention to her, which makes her shy. However, she keeps up a good PL saying and tries to keep her nerves while the boys keep telling her that she's displaying a nice body, but ends up losing the match because of it, so she pushes him by stripping him. Up next, Iori and Kohei step on the court, and Kudo thinks it's going to be a walk in the park. But his idea is shattered when Iori does a monster serve at him. Iori then proceeds to dominate the game, and the group realizes that he's actually good at sports. But his flow state is broken when Kohei plays a pathetic ball, losing them the point. Just then, the opposing team turns the tables around using Kohei as the weak link. And just then, Kudo lets them know that they're recording the match, making them realize that they want to get a video of them being disgraced. So Iori decides to lock in and tries to knock out one of the players with his serves. But they keep on dodging the ball, which frustrates him. As a last resort, he goes on to knock Kohei out and switches places with Kotobuki and Tokito, who proceed to annihilate Kudo and his teammate, winning them the match. After this, Kohei gets in a fight with Iori over what he did, and when they ask if Iori played tennis before, he explains that he learned how to play to join the tennis club, so he can score babes, but he has decided to give up on tennis since he now has a new sport to love. Just then, Chisa hands him a towel and praises him for playing well, which surprises him. Afterward, Tokito and Kotobuki suggest that they use the prize money to take a trip to a resort in Okinawa, which surprises the group, and Iori spots a diving magazine in their hands, assuming that they did everything so they can go on a diving camp trip, but in reality they want to explore the region's string booze. The next day, while the boys are excited about the trip, Tokito walks in to tell them that he got a part-time job for them to sponsor the trip, and when they ask for the prize money they won from the tennis match, he explains that it only covered the travel expenses, adding that they'll have to pay for the other aspects of them from pocket, which surprises the boys. The following day, the girls meet the two looking drained at the house, so they explain that Tokito got them a part-time job at a moving company, claiming that they worked all day lifting heaving packages, and after they got paid, they squandered the money at a bar. They then reveal that Tokito has gone to work again, but they are too drained to join him, and just then Asura informs them that Kotobuki is also at his job, which they assume is either a male version of a night worker or brothel advertiser. However, Asura says it's none of that, and invites them to visit him at his job. Shortly after, they meet him at his bartender job, which surprises him, and while the girls say how cool he looks, the boys are busy thinking he's a naughty type of bartender. Asura then explains that the place is very cheap, claiming that the master of the establishment made it so to enable students to enjoy their time there, and just then the master joins them, welcoming the group as he realizes they're Kotobuki's friends, while the boys admit that it's weird watching him work seriously. After the master reveals that he attracts a lot of young female customers, Kotobuki shows why this happens, taking good care of one of the customers as he listens to her relationship issues and consoles her, making her confess that she loves him. This makes the boys jealous, and they conclude that the bartender vibe makes girls attracted to them. So the master tells them to try out being a bartender, and they change into the attire, but complain that being properly dressed around alcohol feels very unnatural, which triggers Aina. The master then tells them to attend to the ladies, and Kotobuki begins by serving Asuta a lime and gin like she ordered. Following this, Aima orders a screwdriver, so Iori serves her a glass of gin with a screwdriver in it, which makes her pissed. After Kohei apologizes for this, he ends up doing the same thing, and this makes Aima crash out. Seeing that they have no idea of how to make cocktails, the master hands them a book of cocktails, and as Iori reads out the names of the cocktails, Kohei is busy having wild thoughts because of the drink's naughty names. To make things easier for them, Ama suggests they recreate bar scenes from TV shows, but Kohei ends up drenching Iori in alcohol, and he decides to get revenge on Kohei, causing them to get into a fight. Seeing them, the master assumes they're very close, asking what kind of relationship they have, and Asuza, alongside Kotobuki, replies that they have a naked type of relationship which freaks the master out. To confirm this, the master asks Iori if he's going out with anyone, and he gives a positive reply. To know more about who he may be dating, the master then begins to describe Kohei, and Iori confirms everything he asks, thinking he's describing Chisa, making the master assume that Iori swings towards the testosterone gender. He then begins to freak out and he becomes thirsty, then accidentally drinks a cocktail that Kohei was offering to Aina. This makes him extremely drunk, and to make him sober up, Iori whispers that he should get sober since something sus might happen to him, which scares the crap out of the master. The following night, the boys arrive at Yamamoto's crib to have drinks and hang out, and while they roast Yamamoto for being too clapped to get a girlfriend, the boys ask after Chisa, and Iori immediately says he hasn't touched her, making them calm down. When he asks why they've been so harsh on him while hanging out, they reply that it was all Nojima's idea, and just then Four Eyes point out that he hasn't been hanging out with them recently. When one of them says that it may be because he has a girlfriend since he's handsome, Yamamoto rejects his theory, saying that he believes in him and narrates how he talked to him when he didn't fit into the class. Hearing his touching story, Larry, they decided to call him to hang out with them, and Iori got him on the line, but he told him to call back in 30 minutes. Just then, Iori overhears a girl's voice in the background, and concludes that he's docking his spaceship in a girl, immediately promoting the gang heads to his place, looking like the Avengers heading to battle Thanos. Back at his place, Nojima sets the mood and gets down to business with his girl. But before he can get into the action, he hears a knock on the door, claiming to be a delivery man, but he resists answering it since he suspects it is the gang trying to sabotage his groove. However, they begin dropping private browser CDs through his mail hole to make his girl uncomfortable, and he manages to save the situation. They then make various attempts to get his attention, but each one fails to stop him, and as they're about to give up, Kohei hears the girl giving him the treatment he always dreamed of, which hurts him, so he decides to help out, and mimics several female voices, calling Nojima out, which finally succeeds in driving the chick out of his house. While he tries to explain that his friends are playing tricks on him, the boys swear to treat him like a traitor to the Brotherhood, and notice that Iori is still monitoring Nojima, so he explains that he still believes he'll come back to them even though he swore to cut them off. While they observe him, Nojima tells the girl to introduce him to her friend, since she's not interested in him anymore, and she sends him flying into their hands. After the gang makes fun of Nojima, they begin to feel worried as they think they'll end up alone, but Four Eyes tells them not to worry about it since they agreed that whoever got a girlfriend would set a mixer for them. So they turn to Iori, but he complains that he can keep setting up mixers, but when they offer him some cash, he immediately folds. Later on, he seeks Kohei's advice on how to get Chisa to come to the mixer, and he says he isn't interested in helping, but folds too, when Iori offers him a cut of the cash, suggesting they play a penalty game with them. Later on, while the club hangs out at the house, Iori offers the girls some sushi to trick them into playing a truth or dare type of game, where whoever draws the chopstick with the king dares a number. Although Aina refuses to play, Chisa says she'll play just one round, but Asuza ends up being the king and orders them to play till the end, making them frustrated. It turns out that Yuro had planned everything with Asuza and Nanaka, and they had agreed to help him out since each of them had ulterior motives for the game. In the next round, Asuza ends up being the king and orders Nanaka to take off a piece of clothing, and before she can strip, Aina ruins the show, taking off her sock instead, which pisses the boys off. Up next, Aina becomes the king, and orders the boys not to strip at the next party they attend. And although this hurts the very fabric of their being, they agree to her command even though Iori protests. Following this, Namaka becomes the king and orders the number 3 to say "I love you sister" in a cute voice to the person by their left, and Iori thinks the order will affect Chisa, but it unfortunately falls on Kohei, who has to say this to Iori with a cute voice. Although he pleads with them, Kohei refuses to hear him out and carries out the dare, traumatizing the crap out of Iori. Following this, Kohei finally becomes the king, and Iori is relieved since they can put their plan to order Chisa to come to the mixer into motion since he knows the possible number she picked. However, Kohei doesn't understand the signal he gave, and dares the wrong number, causing Iori to lash out at him. After the two fight it out, they admit that the plan won't work out, so they decide to come clean and blurt out their true intentions, asking Chisa to come with her friends to a mixer, giving the excuse of using the money they were offered to sponsor their trip. However, she turns them down, telling them to get another job, and this makes them realize they never stood a fighting chance against her, so they decide to find another way to get the cash. Since the game is still on, Asuza says that the numbers they ordered still have to carry out their request, and unfortunately for them, it turns out to be Kotoki. So he invites his musclehead friend to the mixer, and the group begins to freak out, threatening to make Iori and Kohei pay for this, but he defends himself, asking them to pay them in recognition of their efforts. The next day, Ina asks if they've come up with the money for the trip, and the boys reply that they haven't yet, but Asuza gave them a job as traffic conductors to earn the cash they need. They then invite the girls to come along, but they turn them down since they figure that the job is really tasking. When they arrive at the house, they meet Kotobuki there, and just then Iori overhears Asuza talking about getting a radish, so he volunteers to get one for them. When Nanaka warns that it may cost above his paycheck, he becomes triggered since he thinks that they're assuming he is too broke to afford a single radish. Before Nanaka can talk him out of his offer, Asuza asks Chisa what she'll do for Iori if he buys them a radish, and she says she may consider treating him like a human for 15 minutes if he does so. When he asks what they want to do with the radish, they explain that he didn't understand what they meant, claiming they were talking about diving equipment, and when they tell him the cost of the gear, he gets pissed that Chisa would consider making him spend that amount of money, but she says it's fair game. Following this, Kotoki tells them that they're going shopping for diving gear at a nearby shop for the day, and when they arrive at their destination, the group is amazed by the assortment of equipment they find. After explaining a few of the equipment and their functions, Kotoki sends the group to explore the shop to get what they may need. After a while of looking around, Iori sees Chisa staring at one of the equipment and is interested in what it is, so she explains that it's an underwater camera. Feeling excited, she then rushes to the next gadget, calling Iori over to see and explaining that the equipment can enable them to talk to each other underwater. Just then, Ina asks for advice on picking a regulator. But Asuza says she'll be good using a rental mouthpiece, and she explains that she wants to buy her regulator because she doesn't want to use the one another person has used since it might be an indirect kiss. So Asuza explains that they bite down on the regulators, meaning it's more like sharing a toothbrush, which makes it even worse. And as Chisa says that she'll be fine since they sterilize the equipment after each use, Iori reveals that he wouldn't mind the indirect kiss, making the girls disgusted in him. While they head to get swimsuits, Ina asks Chisa if she's dating Iori, and her mood becomes more sour than a lime, giving Ina her answer. Just then, they spot Iori making a fool of himself, and this proves why she could never even consider dating him. Following this, Iori meets Kohei worshipping a pair of tech swimsuits, and when he asks why he was there, he says he plans on buying them, acting like someone on Colombian snow, which freaks Iori out. When Kohei says he doesn't want to buy it for himself, Iori suggests he get someone who could wear it to tell him how it feels, and calls the girls to try it on, which makes Kohei go Super Saiyan, feeling eternally grateful to him for blessing his eyes with such perfection. After this, the group meets up and they all reveal what they've decided to get, and while they select the gears, Iori spots how passionate Chisa is, and Asuza reminds him of how much she loves diving, claiming that Chisa is very happy she made friends her age that can go diving with her. After this, the group heads back to the house and shows off their purchases to Nanako, who makes them realize that they had spent too much money on gears, meaning they'd have to work their butts off to get the money for their trip. The next couple of days, the girls work in embarrassing outfits handing out posters while the boys stand all day, directing traffic without a break. They finally get the money for the trip and everyone gets set to head out. Some days later, they are finally ready for the trip and they excitedly set out. When they finally arrive at their destination, Ina happily looks around and Chisa tells her not to draw so much attention to herself. However, she realizes that the boys are drawing all the attention as they jubilate like they won a Nobel Prize. After this, the group heads to the apartment they'll be staying at and the girls comment that it looks very nice while Iori is more excited that there's a pool there. When the boys get to their room, they realize that the futon is too small to dig everyone out, so Kotoki suggests that Kohei and Iori choose who'd sleep on the floor between themselves. But before that, they decide to head to the beach. On the other hand, as they head to the beach, Ina is particularly excited to be there since it's always been part of her dream to have such youthful experiences of going to the beach with her friends. But her dream is tainted by the boys running around without clothes, which makes her sad. She then insists they head to the public beach so the boys can put on their clothes, and while there, a beach worker suggests they try out their banana boat rides. Kotick then suggests they give it a try, and when Iori says he's not interested, Kotick then suggests that they use it as a means of choosing who would be sleeping on the floor, saying that whoever falls off the boat will be the loser that calls him a chicken to bait him into agreeing to it. When Chisa asks if he's worried he'll get into the water, he says he's fine since he is wearing a life vest, and assures her he has a plan to win. As they begin the boat ride, the driver says that it's common for people to fall off the boat and the two wish themselves good luck on the contest. When they both grab their handles, they find that it's covered in Diddy serum, making them lash out at each other for stooping Sadko, and the boat rider begins the ride. They both struggle to stay on the boat, mocking each other to sow discouragement, and while they're fighting for their lives, Ainina mistakes it for them having a blast. Just then, the two get an idea to make the other person lose, and they simultaneously pour oil on each other's feet, making them lose their grip and fall into the water at the same time. While the two get into a fight, Ainina asks Chisa if she has fun, and she admits that she did. Up next, Ainina rides the boat with Tokido and Kotobuki, but it's the most boring experience she's ever had, as the boat is more stable than Hisoka's mental health, and this makes her sad. When they get back to the house, Kohei and Iori begin to laze around, but the girls remind them of their upcoming test, handing them their manuals so they can study for it. Concerning their sleeping arrangements, Kotobuli says that Iori is the loser, and seeing that sleeping on the floor may not be good for him since he has the test the next day, Nanaka suggests he stay with herself and Asura. Later in bed, even when she tells him to relax, Iori can't seem to close his eyes since the girls are half naked next to him, and he tries texting Kohei for help, but the dude is already asleep. The next morning, Kohei shows the text to the group, and they assume that Iori didn't get any sleep because of how uncomfortable he may have felt. To their surprise, he walks out looking refreshed, and even boasts that he'll score higher than Kohei, which makes them get into a fight. Toki then decides to ask them some questions to test them, and after a couple of easy questions, they ask one that only Iwaru gets, which surprises them. They soon realize that he spent all night reading in an attempt to not be tempted by the ladies, and while answering more questions, his brain began to glitch since he got distracted at some moments. When the girls walk out, the group understands why he couldn't sleep, and while they talk, they ask how he forced himself to sleep, so he explains that he manually did so by restricting the O2 to his brain. After this, they take him to the test room, and he is surprised since he expected it to be a bit more formal, but Kotoki says the tests aren't as serious. This surprises Aina and she asks why he worked so hard, so they explain that the knowledge is about safety, which should be taken seriously. Iori then begins his test and Chida gets worried about him, so Asuza sends her to check in on him, only for her to find him distracted by Nanaka's chest jello, so she slaps him back to reality. When he is done, they grade the test, and he does fine on it, which makes everyone relieved. The next day, they all head to the ocean for some diving sessions, and before they enter the water, Nanaka asks them a few questions to test if they're ready, and then warns them that they should immediately resurface when their pressure tanks hit 60. After this, she teaches them how to submerge into the water, and then a few of them find it difficult to get it right. After they finally get underwater, she gives them a few lessons on diving, showing them how to use their regulators and how to drain their glasses if water gets in them. She also shows them how to use the buddy system, and after a while of having fun underwater, their tanks finally hit the limit, so they all have to come to land. While they meet with the others, Kohei argues about having a better pressure time than Iori, and they soon find that the older club members are way better than them. When Kohei asks Nanaka why she didn't just tell them to go back up while she stayed underwater longer, she says that it's a team activity, and everyone has to come out of the water if one person hits their limit. This brings up another argument between Kohei and Iori, as Kohei tells him not to hold them back. Just then, Aina gets lost in thought as she remembers how the tennis club abandoned her, and Chisa notices this, asking her if she's okay, then everyone checks on her, getting her to cheer up. After this, they head back into the water for further lessons. And after a while of having much fun, Nanaka asks for their pressure, and Aina realizes that she is the only person with low pressure and considers lying about it, so she doesn't make everyone go back up. However, she sees that Iori is onto her, so she decides to tell the truth. Later on, Iori confronts her about it, and she explains why she almost lied, saying that she didn't want to end everyone's fun, but he says it's a stupid reason since they all wouldn't care about that. He then takes her to meet the older club members to prove his point, and they explain to her that it's no big deal, telling her not to even consider lying next time as it'll rush her safety, making her relieved. Later on, Iori gets worried that he'd be the only new member to fail the licensing test, since he didn't do so well during their training, and while he's scheming ways to eliminate the group so they don't mock him for it, Chisa pops out of nowhere, which shocks him. While she interrogates him while he's acting weird, Tokito says they should all go to the fish market to get some food, and he immediately escapes, making Chisa sus of him. When they get to the car rental area, they all practice being clowns as they try fitting into a tiny car, and the manager apologizes for mixing up their orders, offering them another car with enough space, only to pull out a truck, which pisses the boys off. Before they head out, he warns that they should be careful since every raid in that area is private owned, and just then they realize that Aina is the only person capable of driving the car, which scares the boys. Soon enough, they realize that she is actually good at driving, and begin to enjoy the ride, wishing they could have some beer, which triggers Aina. After a short while, they arrive at the market, and everyone spreads out to get what they want, leaving Chisa with Kohei and Aina. Aina then decides to check in on the others, and meets Asuza telling a store vendor that she wants to eat an old man, which makes her freak out. When she reports back to the rest, they say she must have misheard her. So she decides to ignore what she heard, and goes to check on Tokito, only to hear him telling the vendor that he wants to have Hassan's wife, making her lose her mind. After she fails to convince the rest of what she heard, she takes them to spy on Katabuki, and they hear him ask the vendor for a high school girl, which shocks them. But before Kohei and Aina can spiral out of control, Chisa explains that it's the names of fishes they sell there. And finally, they overhear Iori asking the vendor for a fish that's poisonous enough to take out a fully grown adult. When they get back to the house, Iori gets into a fight with Kohei for spying on him, and they question him for trying to buy a poisonous fish. Just then, Tokito announces that they'll be cooking in pairs so they can properly manage the kitchen, then asks them to pick a number, and while they're doing so, Iori prays very hard to be paired with Chisa for some reason, which creeps her out. Luckily for him, his prayers are answered, but Chisa doesn't feel comfortable with it, so she asks Aina to swap places with her, and he tries explaining that it's nothing weird. After a while, Chisa heads to the kitchen with him, and when he tries talking to her, she goes into defensive mode. However, he gets her to be comfortable, and starts explaining why he wants to be paired with her, then asks her to give him extra lessons. While they are talking, Anina decides to check on them and overhears a part of their chat, which she mistakes as him asking Chisa out, which crushes her spirit. When she reports to Kohei, he heads there to confirm what she said, and also misinterprets their convo, thinking that they're planning on doing the dirty hip dance that night. Later that night, Anina decides to take a stroll since she can't sleep and bumps into Chisa at the pool with Iori, overhearing him saying that she should step harder on him, making her freak out, and when she checks what they're up to, she sees her pushing him in the pool with her feet. He then tries to give excuses for this, but he finally comes clean to her, telling her that she is helping him practice diving, but she doesn't believe him until Chisa says it. He then explains that he might be the only one to fail the test, since he didn't do well during the training, and decided to get better by practicing with Chisa so they don't mock him. Afterwards, she decides to help him, and a passerby sees them doing so, calling the cops as he thinks they're drowning him. After a while of practicing, he decides to practice some more and tells the girls to head to bed, making them realize how much he wants to pass. Just then, a police officer shows up saying that he got a report of suspicious activities happening around and says that he'll hang around to monitor the situation, making him stuck in the pool since he isn't dressed. The next morning, Tokito says he can't join them for practice since he developed a fever, and Kohei mocks him for falling sick while the girls try defending him, since they know what really happened. Later on, when Iori wakes up from his nap, he sees Azusa with him, and he apologizes for keeping her from practicing with the others. However, she says she volunteered to take care of him. After she tries to administer some type of weird home remedy to him, she pulls out a bottle of vodka, which makes Iori excited. However, she says he can't drink since he's sick, and then she suddenly offers him a chance to oil her machine, but he chooses to keep his status as the final boss of virginity. After this, he asks why she hasn't gone after Takedo since she likes him, and he can't believe it when she says Takedo has a girlfriend, which makes Iori crusted since he can't get one. Meanwhile, the others successfully get their license and head back home to celebrate, only to find Azusa passed out with Iori in a position that screams 50 Shades of Grey, while Kohei is freaked out by the fact that Iori might be a masochist. A couple of days later, the group heads to another town for a diving program, and some dudes show up to take them to the location. After a quick tour around the town, they get to their destination and board the ship that's taking them to the dicing site. While they have fun on the ride there, Kohei decides to take cheap shots at Iori, and the two get into a fight, but Chisa breaks up their fight since other divers are there. Just then, their instructor walks up to the group and announces that they're about to start diving, stating that they're planning to dive to a depth of 17 meters for 40 minutes. After giving them a brief orientation, the group changes into their gear, and Aina is surprised to see Iori changing too, since he doesn't have a license, but he explains that he's participating in the first two dives with the trial group. When Aina complains that she's not confident enough to join the main group for all their dives, he tells her to have fun on every dive, assuring her that she'll be fine since she has Chisa by her side to help her, and this cheers her up. After the first dive, the group shows Iori the beautiful view from a deeper level of the ocean, and Kotoki tells him not to feel bad since he can always get his license to see it for himself, while Kohei decides to take a shot at him, which pisses him off. Later on, while they're having lunch, Chisa notices that Iori seems sad, and during the second dive she gets worried about him. So she decides to skip the third dive to check on him, and as she tries cheering him up, she realizes that he's been acting weird all day because he is motion sick, which triggers her. While they talk, he admits that she is a kind person, and promises not to hate diving because of this one experience, since he appreciates every moment he spends with the club, making her feel relieved. After this, the instructor ends the diving program, and they all have fun on the ship while heading back home. When they get to their inn, Kotoki announces that they can't visit the famous drinking pub like they planned to, since it was shut down, and this is great news to Kohei, as Iori, as they won't have to drink through the night. However, he says they'll set up their drinking festival, and intercept the boys when they try to escape. He then explains that they'll all pour their favorite drinks into a huge pot while giving a toast, and everyone will process to drink from the pot through the night. To start, while saying a few words, Tokoito pours a drink that is so concentrated that it could kill 100% of germs when used to disinfect an object, and Kotobuki follows suit, which drives the boys crazy. After a few other people add their drinks, it gets to Kohei and Iori's turn, and they make up their mind to add some water to dilute the drink since it's so strong that it almost fries Iori's liver just by looking at it. However, the gang gets pissed at him for attempting to do so, and the two end up pulling out a milder type of alcohol to add to the drum. Suddenly, Kohei becomes nervous since he's not good at giving speeches, but Iori tells him it's not a big deal, and after they give the most chaotic speech ever, the two get into a fight. Just then, Kotoki tells them to start drinking, and Iori comes up with an idea to bail them out from getting wasted. But this backfires on them as Kotoki adds more alcohol to the drum. Iori and Kohei then brace themselves for a rough night, making up their minds to not give in to the alcohol, but they end up getting wasted and making a fool of themselves. After having a blast, the team returns home the next day, and Chisa shows the girls the pictures she had taken of the group while on the plane home. Comment down below, 96% booze, if you finish the video. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.